Hi there guys, this is the beginning of another project which is all based on improvements in the shop. You're going to try and set up DRO on this little mill, and I really didn't want to spend too much high cost glass scales and all sorts, because I don't use coolant in large quantity very much. So I've gone for a budget system which I think, if I remember rightly, one of my comment people, Englishman French, he's another Chris, he, if I remember correctly, mentioned about some parts that I could get from Warren Tools, which is in the UK. And some people are probably familiar with the name Walco. In fact, I've got Walco written on the front of my old pillar drill, which has served very well. Not pillar drill, bench drill, drill press. So I contacted them, and I've got a set of stuff. It's fairly basic. The display unit is what I'd call a bit rinky-dink. It's got no frills on it. I can get a better one which has got all sorts of calculator and trig functions, but this is just very basic, metric or inch, and I'll probably mount it up the top somewhere, and if it does the job, that's fair enough. I'm not sure how many zeros I get. I'm just turning it on a minute. Now, it doesn't look as though it's going to read tenths, but then I'm not usually too concerned about tenths, and I'll use an indicator sometimes to confirm what a DRO might give. So anyway, what I've got, there's 500mm scale, and then this one I think is, what's this one? I forget now. Probably about 100, I think. 100mm. Did I say millimeters for this one? 500mm, 100mm. Hang on, that can't be right. That can't be right. I got to measure it now because I haven't got the paperwork in front of me. Sorry, that's 300mm, and this other one should be 500, I think. No, correction, 600 and a bit. Anyway, I based the choice of those on my table and travel and such like. I mean, these could be cut down too if necessary. So the main problem, I've got Z-axis on here, that's adequate for what I want. But there are several problems. I've looked at one or two videos and they sort of help, but I've basically got to get round the problems myself. I ought to change angle really, just a minute. I expect some folks watching have already found their own solutions to this with whatever DRO system they fitted. I could have gone for a DRO kit, but fearfully expensive. And if this works, I should be content. Anyway, the problems thus far. This is rather a bulky reader slider, very bulky. It's got a direct readout on it, but I'm going to want to feed up to the other unit. Anyway, you can't go too high because you're going to be touching the bottom of a vise overhang, and it can come forward by about that much so that it clears the hand wheel of the Y. And that will mean a standoff from the table, which I think I can do. I'll make some more mini T-nuts for the stops. There's one on there if you can see it. I have to make a couple of mini T-nuts, and then we'll probably have something like an aluminum block spaced off and drilled to allow this to sit at the right height. We've got slots each end so we can adjust it for truth later, but that is going to mean that's going to mean a standoff of 2 inches, which sounds an awful lot, doesn't it? Because I'd initially thought, oh, we'll have the scale just running, you know, right up against the side of the table. But then the other thing too is the x-axis locks, they're in the way. So at the moment, that's what I'm thinking for the X. And then for the Y, not so much a complication, but something I've got to take into account. And I don't know whether you might get the idea, but anyway, this is going to probably mount on the sloping surface here, down fairly low. In fact, I can, well, it slipped a bit. You get the general idea. But then the slider readout scale is going to have a very custom bracket to come up from there to the side of the Y casting. So there's quite a lot to take into account, really. I'm going to document it, but only in, shall we say, major stages. I'm not going to bore you with milling, drilling, tapping and stuff. I'll just show you what I've come up with eventually. And in all honesty, I know it's going to take me quite a long time. It's still darn hot out here. I've put the AC off just for the moment, but it's pretty darn hot, and I think I should be picking at this in bits. I may get quite a bit done next weekend, I'm not sure. So anyway, there's the intro, very long-winded as my usual method. And I'll pick up on it as we go along, alright? Oh, quite incidental. Look at this box. That's what the 600, well, it's 2 foot, isn't it? That's what the 600mm came in. It's a nice little box. Box joints and everything. Just thought I'd throw that in for good measure. Oh, and the other thing, just whilst I've got the camera running again, I had an email, oh, I forget what it's called, somethingtools.net anyway. It's a thing I get emails and you see what projects guys are working on. And one guy had used an old tripod, or tripod leg. He used a mag base, here we are, favourite mag bases. Put a pivot on there with a holding collar and nut, and then he simply had whatever projection he wanted with a holder then for his plasma torch for cutting circles. That seems ever so easy. So that's another thing on the list which I shall make up. Anyway, back to the main programming. Alright, I might as well bring you up to speed on the next step, which is very minor at the moment. I thought these were T-nuts. Well, they're actually, this is actually a shallow dovetail. I think it's about a 25 degree. It's not very steep. So what I've done is, I've got fortunately some nice stainless cap screws, and I've taken some 6mm nuts and just ground a slight taper on them so that they engage in the dovetail. I took the end off, so I've got these in where I hope to use them, and that's the something like the standoff that we're going to be dealing with, alright, which I hope will work. The center pointer that was in here, which you may be able to just about see it, it's there with a scribe line for a center location on this scale. Well, I'm not going to need that. I think somebody else used those holes, or one of them. So I'm going to try and use those to take a bracket off the rear of the slider and get a rigid fixing. That again may have to be a block of something. For the end pieces, I've got this piece of aluminum. It's usual thing, you know me. Look around, what have I got? Well, this is, I think it's 4-inch, maybe slightly less or more. Hang on, it's just under. But I'm actually looking for something in the region of 3/4 to 1 7/8 here, something like that, which will keep me in this clear zone. Alright, won't be fouling anything, and I can still get at the, just checking here, I can still get at the locking screws. So I think what I'll do is, this is 1.5 by 1.25. I should check it. 1.25 by 1 5/8, which is pretty empirical. So we'll mount it that way for stability, because the thickness is close to the table thickness, so it'll look better. And we'll counterbore for the cap screws, and then use the end, which will be adequate, to fit this on, and that's got a slot so it can be set up. It's a pretty rough piece of metal at the moment, but I'm going to cut that and then put it in the machine and face it off completely. Well, at least I'll face it off first, then I'll cut it and do the ends. And now I can get the end and hand wheel back on here. So that's where we're at for the moment. I just cleaned this piece up. See if we get any focus on it. I just cleaned that block up. The ends I'm not too worried about. I've just side milled just to square those up whilst they're in the vise. So we're going to take a approximately 50% cut on the bandsaw, and then we'll put both pieces together in the vise and machine off and finish up with 2 identical blocks. I cut these off, and as usual, not very square, so I'm going to probably take a couple of passes. I'm probably going to take about 10 or 12 thou off. Okay, let's just get some chips out of the way. I didn't get those blocks in very square in the jaws actually, but there's enough. There's plenty of grip on them, so let's see what we got. It was quite a, I took a couple of passes to take it steady. So we've now got, those will be the outer faces, which are going to be drilled, the counterboard for set screws, cap screws. And then that underneath side, which is just rough and ready, that'll go against the table. Alright, so we're going to do some drilling next when I get back to this. This is just a sort of in-between outside of the main program. I've just been down to my semi-local steel supplier, and I spoke to one of the guys there. Could you fix me up with some bits? Because I don't usually want huge pieces. So what I got is this. I've got a couple of pieces of 1/2-inch plate. I mean, they're not huge, but my golly, that's useful to have. Load of 1/4 and some 1/8, and then these sections here, flat bar, more flat bar, inch angle, what's that, 1.5 box, inch box, 2 by 1 box I expect that is. And oh wait a minute, that one, you know, I can't remember what that size is. Yeah, 1.5 inch, and then 5 more shorter pieces of 1.5 inch, and piece of 1.25 inch cold rolled. 1045 I think they keep. So that lot was 50 bucks. And I'm happy as a pig in you know what. Because for me, that's quite a lot of stuff available for projects and so on. And the other thing I got done, oh, I've got rags everywhere. These cheapo plates that came with the Harbour Freight press, I got the guys over there to cut me a couple out of inch steel, because that won't shatter. Somebody mentioned that and I've thought about it for ages. And they did those for 20 bucks each. And I thought that was very reasonable. So, quite a happy morning, although the sweat is running off me this minute. And then we'll get back to our original programming. Right, I've just finished drilling and counter drilling on these pieces. A little bit tedious, but having got them set up on the Z-axis, it made things a bit easier. So, I haven't got my air turned on. I'd actually made these just a smidgen shallow, but we're good now. I've actually gone a little bit the other way, but I want to make sure these are. I want to make these sure these are going in with a bit of space to spare. So what we'll try now, I'll see if I can fit them on each end here, see how they tighten up. Not quite there yet. There's a little holding pin for the scale right at the end, and I need to make a tiny relief for that in the block. Gain another 3/16, same this end, but in essence this will set slightly low on the blocks, probably about there, so that the centre here just clears an overhang vise. I could have used larger blocks, but I'm not really too concerned about it as long as I get my fixing at the ends. Alright, so the next thing is how I'm going to attach the slider onto here. I've got two holes, but I've got to find a way to use them. Well, I milled a small relief on the back of these. Didn't need to be full width, but I did, just to clear these pins that hold the scale on. So these fit pretty good. I think I haven't got them tightened right up. They should finish up basically flush with the table. Anyway, temporarily I've got the scale taped in place so I could make a mark. There's a fairly substantial slot each end. I'll zoom in on that. Unfortunately, I hadn't got. I wanted to use these this way to get my better spacing on the bolts. I could have used them vertical, but that would have given me less available space for mounting this. And if I'd had that in square, I'd probably have had a bit more material down here. I don't think that'll matter too much. So you can see it's just taped at the moment. The underhang down here is a bit more than I would like, but in fact we're still contacting with nearly 2/3 of the bracket. I'm going to drill and tap that for some 1024. Oh! There you are. Tape let go. Tap these for 1024 close to the top of the slot, and just give me a little bit of leeway. As I mentioned before, you won't be able to see it now, but I have to clear the bottom of an overhang vice overhang, and I've got to leave space for my X-axis locks. Well, we got frogs again tonight, guys. Oh dear. Alright, this is where we're at. Now this isn't actually very pretty. And I don't like the fact that this has had to come so far forward, but I can't really see any alternate way to do it. It's partly because this slider is so big. But I'm stuck with what I've got. I'm going to try and make it work. We've got these drilled and tapped. That's set up roughly level, but later on we'll mic it up, set it up for absolute truth. Now the main problem here is how we make up a bracket. So let's zoom in a little bit. Now there's plenty of scope on the back here for fitting. Now this, which normally goes back here, acts as the stop block, shall we say, for the two sliding stops. I don't know whether this is in frame or not. There's one. You see that? Just about. Anyway, I may want to use those. So I think I might be able to get away with using this block, which is held with a couple of 6mm cap screws, and that's up at about that level. Again, I'm not sure whether you can see a darn thing. Now from that, the distance from the Y slide there to this scale is 2.190, basically 2 3/16. The stop block, that is 10mm, which is nominally 0.394. So I think I will try and make up a bracket to come off that block, come across, and then down onto the back of the slider. The main thing being I've got to have access. I shall need to have access for those screws, which I think I can do through the hand wheel. So that's what we're going to try. Bit of a fiddle, haven't even got onto the Y-axis yet. This is great fun, and I haven't seen anybody do this sort of thing before. So as long as it works, that's what's going to matter. I think this is going to be possibly rather a long video. Oh gosh, you know how you try to get things right first time, but then when it's a suck it and see thing, you think, oh no, I think we'll change that. So I'm going to make some changes. I'm actually just shy of clearance on the hand wheel at the rearward limit of the Y, and looking at it, because the brackets on the scale give an offset of at least 1/4 inch, no, 3/8 probably, I'm going to remachine these blocks and probably take them down by a 1/2 inch. I don't know why I made them so huge really. I just thought lots of clearance would be good, which it is, but I can get the height adjusted to clear the vise. It's just a smidge high at the moment. That is a cable clamp. The connector goes underneath, which I hope in itself won't be a problem. No, I think we'll be alright for that. I'll just have to route the wire very carefully. So we're going to take everything off, put the blocks back as a pair, and machine the hell out of them. I think I'm going to take about another 1/2 inch, something like that, which is quite a lot, and then shorten these bolts and so on and so on and so on. So there's not much machining. This is all just chit chat and trying to work out what the hell I'm doing. Well, I managed to take off, that's about 7/16 in the bandsaw, save a bit of time, and just taking another 40 thou or so off there to clean it up. All I've got to do now is just put, I don't know why I went full width before, all I need is a little bit each end to clear the scale securing pins. Just making a small 3/16 clearance on the end here. That's enough for that end. I'll just do the other end. I didn't bother with the facing off on that. I don't know why I'm bothering with this actually, just to try and give you a little bit of machining instead of constant chit chat changing my mind. Let's come down 60 thou. It's close enough there. That should be enough, it's not very critical. Just that little bit of end clearance. Right, I think I showed you this piece before. That's what I cut off, plus I machined another 45 thou off the back of these. So now the Z-axis is fully back. We're still clearing the slider, and the cable clamp on the top, that clears the vise. In fact, the vise isn't, I don't think, quite central on the table, but that doesn't matter. My locks work, and I think that's about it. So the problem now is going from the back of that to these two holes, and that at the moment is somewhat of a pain in the butt, working out how to do it and have the rigidity that's needed. This centre mount for the slider on the X, I was going to try and use sheet metal entirely, but I don't like that idea, so we've got another aluminium block. I'm just facing off the sides, cleaning this piece up. Just a 5 thou skim, and now I've just got to do the top end. Then I'll tell you what we're going to do with it, hopefully. Oh, sorry, I let that go out of frame. Wasn't paying attention. Ooh, more blather coming up. I've just machined another block. This piece. Slight relief there, which is to cope with the slight extra on the scale, and I want it to go up the height of the old piece, which I haven't got in front of me, so that each side can be used for a stop. I don't want to lose that option. Now this markup down here, or actually this side, it probably won't make much sense, but that's the approximate center line for the, if you can see these two holes, that's where the original cursor piece was set, and each side was available as for the stops. So we want to put this on there, but this area here has to be relieved because when we're fully back on the Y, the handle will catch this unless it's got clearance. Just another little nuisance. And if I make the relief actually back further to this line, it's going to, let me see if I can dummy it up for you. You won't see all, oops, you won't see all of it at all. That's roughly where it'll be, and then you can see the slider comes across, and we'll have to have a small piece of sheet metal from here across to pick up 2 holes on the back. And it's still too darn hot in here. I must get the AC running again. Alright, I'll see you in a bit. Alright, excuse the handhold here. That's the original piece that was in the 2 holes, which I don't know whether you can even see because I've got the wrong angle at the moment. Anyway, these I've used as a pattern. The block here will, as I said earlier, cover the use of the stops. There's one there, on the other side. So what we've done here is cut a relief. Well, first of all, it was a sequence problem here. I thought I'll drill first and counterbore, and I counterbored deep on this side. So now I've removed 450 of material there, which I'm hoping will give me the clearance for the hand wheel on the full Y. So I'm going to take that out and see if I can fit it once I've got the bolts sorted out for length. Well, quite a bit of messing around and a few cheats as usual. Anyway, I've got the block mounted, having got the screws, bolts to length. It's not fully tightened up yet. The final fixing will be take the hand wheel off. So what we have, in fact I'll give you maybe a handheld view. We've got 50 thou nominal behind the slider and the block, and that's to take a piece of sheet metal, scrap from something. Let's get another view. Alright, handheld, just to try and give you an idea. Now that relief down there is way excessive, but I wasn't going to mess about. That takes care of clearance for the handle when we're fully back on the Y, and we're up at about the same height. I'm not sure how the exposure is working with all my different lights. That's up at about the same height as the old pointer. That means, hang on, change hands. That means one of the stops either side can work. And then, let's see, let's try and get this. So bring the slider up. Now obviously the slider is not going to be dead center with this, but there again we're not going to probably be using the table to the very extreme. So what I plan is, you can see here, I think, you see that piece of thin stuff? Whoops, I'm not concentrating, sorry. So that piece of thin, we will make 2 holes in it as relief for the cap screws that are in there, and then basically come across to the back of the slider. And here's the other slider. It's got some terrible reflections here. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'll probably use these 2 holes. So we'll come onto the slider, fix that to the slider, 2 reliefs, fixing holes, drilled and tapped, and we may well be there. I tell you what, this is, even if this fits into part 1, it's going to take forever. the other thing I meant to throw in for good measure, here's the little old rinky-dink display, which I hope will suffice. It's not very elaborate, but anyway, I needed some way of fixing. So what I've got here are 4 countersunk neodymiums. Very useful, guys, if you can get yourself some countersunks. Put 4 of those on. There we are. It's as good as it needs to be, no bracket or anything. Anyway, that's it for the moment. Catch you in a bit. Well, okay guys, I'm going to call this a wrap on the X. You won't believe the hassles I've had, you know, trying to get measurements right and drilling, tapping, trying to get positions right. So anyway, there we are, the block at each end, and then in there is the center aluminum spacer block. I had to take the rule almost out of the slider to get at the screws here, which I've had to make countersunk because of the lack of clearance. 2 things at the moment are a problem. One is, I think I was measuring here, there's probably 32nd or a 16th on that distance compared to that down there and the other end. So the rule is not absolutely straight, so I'm going to have to make some adjustments. 2 things, I should probably take these off and machine them again, and just take a little bit off, try and compensate for that, because the X has gone rather stiff at the moment and I suspect there's drag on here. The other thing that I don't like, and I'm a bit stuck with it at the moment, you see that lead goes in from the bottom, and I shall have to try and get a 90 degree, I think, assuming somebody makes one. I've got to get round that problem, because as I advance the Y, that cable gets in the way. I mean, at the moment, bringing it back out towards me is not a problem. We're clear under the vise, and the display, my little rinky-dink display, if I can find a position to show that. So we're on the X only at the moment. God, there's so much reflection. That's a bit better. And I'm just turning that with the other hand. Haven't put a DTI on to check it, but I will. So I'm going to call that a wrap on the X-axis. So maybe this is DRO part 1, if this isn't too damn long. It's almost more talk and thought and changing mind than machining. Alright, anyway, that's it for now, so I'm going to call that a wrap on part 1. I'll try and get this X eased off, and then we start to play with the Y. That'll be a whole new ball game, won't it? Alrighty, thanks for watching this far if you stay with me. See you soon.